go now into our Q&A session, led by Deborah Craig Ray.
Yes, y'all had some really good questions, and I'm sorry we can't get to all of them because of the time, but we'll get as far as we can. Does that sound okay? Awesome. All right, first question, and you all can decide which one will answer, or you both may answer. What made you want to start working for the city, county? How is it being a woman of color in very important roles?
I'll start. My parents were active in the community. My father was actually a county commissioner. My mom was an extension agent. So I grew up being a part of the community and serving, and lived in a rural area. And when I went to college, majored in finance, economics, thought I wanted to go in the private sector, had fantastic experiences, but didn't get fulfilled, and so decided I wanted to have a different path. And through nonprofit experiences, also then shifted to local government, and it's been quite rewarding. So I get to do the finance, but I also get to help, and so that's how I got into it. I will say I've been fortunate to, the second part of the question, a woman of color.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Wanda can say it too, although I'm 50-something, I can remember being the first in some things throughout my career, because there's not a lot of women sometimes in finance and in economics too. And, but I will say I've been fortunate that here and throughout my career that there's been equitable opportunities, and so that's been a great experience. I've had some challenge, but I'm grateful that folks saw my talent and what I could do. And so in these seats, like with any seat, you just do your best. And so with that, I hope that covers it.
So I'll be very brief, even though I could be very long-winded, because I've been in local government for more than 30 years. And I won't go through every single twist and turn that I have actually had since I joined the city municipal government here in the city of Durham. But I was drawn to government service actually through my private sector experience. I went to UNC Chapel Hill, and I majored in business there, but that was actually not my first love. My first love was actually human services and social services and people, and how people get served in their communities. And actually, when I started college many years ago, I really wanted to be a social worker. You got any jobs? That's what I really, actually, I really did. That was what I thought I was going to college to be. But during my entry into higher education, there was a change in some of the more traditional careers that women were seeking to be prepared for, to serve. And I decided to take one of those paths and try my hand in business. And it was a very rewarding turn, but I ended up being in the private sector, working for a CPA firm that actually served local government clients. So I was exposed to local government services from the private sector, and when it was timely for me to leave the private side of my career, I knew where my space would be, and it would be in local government. I actually tell the story a lot. I actually applied for 2 positions, but they were both of them were accounting positions. One was at Durham County and one was at the city. And I decided to take the one at the city. It was not a real big reason. Sometimes I create what must have been the reason, but it's been so long ago I can't even remember all of the reasons. But I selected the city. And I have been with the city for many years. I can just sort of merge this part of my journey into very similar comments that Claudia has made here about being a woman of color in the positions that I've held. I also being in finance and accounting, in, you know, the business side of things. I have always been working among people who are less like me in terms of my gender, in terms of my race, but I have always had support of many people to help mentor me, and I've been a mentor to others, and I feel that the journey has permitted me to gain the kinds of experiences that I will be able to look back on my career, and I will see it as being very a way to be fulfilled, both from things that I have been trained to be or an expert in, along with serving in an organization that is about as close as you can get to the residents that actually live there in local government. So I am extremely grateful for the opportunities that I have had, and I feel like I've had the kind of support to get me to different places that I've been through in my career.
Thank you both. Are city and county priorities in the presentations listed in priority order? How are priorities determined?
I'll go first this time. So as you can probably imagine, there are so many priorities in a community of Durham City and County, over 300,000 residents. There are a lot of priorities. What our organization, as well as the county, and Claudia might provide more detail, we use all of the input that we can receive to create a strategy or a strategic plan that helps us match the funding we have with the priorities that residents tell us are a priority to them. And we check and double check. So we may get results from a survey. We may get results from a focus group. We may get results from just residents that are coming, or feedback from residents that come to visit us in our offices. There are a lot of different ways that we get feedback about what we do, and we try to collapse all of that into priorities that rise to the top so that we can match the revenue that we have for those priorities. Sometimes a priority is a priority for a while, and then it becomes operational, or it gets funded, or may get spent off to another type of entity, another organization, and other priorities rise to the top because the world's always changing. But as in summary, I would say that our priorities are set by the residents that we serve, and we just have to make sure that we're gaining enough of that information to summarize it and put it into action.
That's a perfect answer. The one thing that I will add is that our jurisdictions collaborate a lot in our engagement, and that, in my opinion, helps with the prioritization, because from a resident, they do not care if it's the city or the county, they just want it done. And so having the resident satisfaction survey every year is helpful. Again, we do lots of engagement, whether it's with surveys or community conversations. And so there is intentionality that, as our policymakers hear from the residents and as we get the feedback from our citizens, that we elevate those in a meaningful way with dollars. And so that process is complex, sometimes messy. But at the end of the day, we feel good about how it came together. And so the iterative process makes Durham, in my opinion, unique in that in some communities is not as transparent, or folks may not feel like they had a voice at the table. But you can truly say in Durham, if you have an opinion, you're welcome to the table, and our elected officials and staff will listen.
Very good. Next question. Speaking of the survey, how often is resident feedback collected? How are residents able to participate in the survey?
The resident satisfaction survey happens annually, and again, it's a coordinated effort between the city and county. In addition to that, there are lots of surveys that happen that are more specific. For instance, the city and county partnered with ARPA, which is the American Rescue Plan Act funding, on some projects. We had joint community conversations, focus groups, etc. And we also had surveys, some at the city, some at the county. And so I would say that from an engagement perspective, the resident survey happens annually, but that there is also more targeted types of surveys. Plus, at every, at least for the county, for once, at the work session, there's an open comment period. And that's once a month, the first Monday of each month. And we get a lot of feedback from there, and some of that also will then turn into follow-up, so.
So one of the things I heard in the question, how do I get to participate in the resident survey? The resident survey goes out to a statistically selected sample of our residents. We use a firm called ETC. One of the reasons that we use that firm is because they do a lot of surveys for a lot of communities, and we are able to look at the results we get compared to other communities of our size that are offering similar services. So you may be lucky enough to be one of the random people that are selected to respond to the survey, and if you are, it will come to your home and you will get it and fill it out, or you will be instructed on how you might call and make and make your responses to the questions. But something Claudia said is very, very important. As any statisticians in here know, that you might not be one of the lucky ones to actually get the survey, but we also check back and make sure that the folks who do get it are diverse, that they live in all parts of our city, all wards, that they represent all income levels, they represent all of what makes us different. So we are hopeful that your voice or some of the similar issues or concerns that you have are represented. But I would also, as the city, on the city side, point out that if you go to our website, you will often find surveys, satisfaction surveys, an opportunity through some of our tools that we have there, social pinpoint, other kinds of interactions, to place your opinion or your idea about something that we're doing specifically. And that is a very, very good way to make your voice heard, even if you don't get the picked for the resident survey when it goes out annually.
And I'll just note that I actually manage it on our side of the house currently, and I work with your staff. And we're meeting, we've had one meeting, we have another one next week. We'll be planning, we're putting the final questions together. We will roll out the process, get the contract working, and the questions generally go out around the end of the year, first of the year. And then once we get the results, of course, they are responded back to City Council and County Commissioners. It's made public on our website, so you can see what the results are. And so it's a very engaging process. And it bears a lot of fruit. It tells us a lot about what we're doing and how we're doing. So it's really great. And again, we get to see over time how we've done. And if we need to tighten up some areas, we see those as well. So it's a really good process. Next question. Excited to learn about our great AAA rating. Can you share an example of a recommendation from a past audit that was incorporated to help keep a strong rating?
So let me speak about that a little bit, sort of pick it apart. So the AAA bond rating is primarily, it is a credit rating based upon the financial health and performance of the organization in general. It is not really directly related to any audit recommendations, but it is looking at metrics of how we apply our tax rate to provided services, how well we are positioned to pay off debt. The reason that we actually have a credit rating is so that we can receive an interest rate on the debt that we issue in order to invest in infrastructure. So it's almost like your credit score. So the AAA bond rating by Fitch, Standard & Poor's, and Moody's, it is given a credit score to the government. So when we have to go out to the bond market, I think Claudia mentioned you all had a referendum of over $400 million to invest in the public schools and in Durham Tech and in the museum. When those bonds are about to be sold, the credit rating that we have determines whether or not we have a low interest rate or a little bit higher interest rate. And when you have the AAAs, you get the best interest rate available. So that's more about the bond rating. Often when we have external audits or internal audits, and both of us have external, we're required to have an external audit every year. Durham County and the city of Durham both have internal audit departments or functions. And that is a constant process whenever a department or one of the cycles that we operate is audited, their recommendations, and we hold ourselves accountable through audit committees that include residents and elected officials, that we're going to put a plan in place to respond to those recommendations. And there's just a feedback loop where the auditor comes back to tell the committee or the elected body they had an adequate response to the recommendation that was made. So that's kind of how it all plays together. It's two different things, but both of those are in some ways a report card on certain part of the government. Is that?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything that was said. With the internal and external audits, they're always trying to see where the risk factors are. And you're always trying to see, well, how can you improve? We've not had material issues. However, if you don't find something, and we're human, then that would be very rare. But we're always trying to make sure that we are improving internal controls, that we have the right balance of staffing and leadership management to oversee operations. So it's a constant effort in managing operations.
What's the biggest challenge as a manager, and how do you measure success?
I would begin by saying one of the largest challenges of being an appointed manager of a municipal government or county government in North Carolina is related to the form of government. It is in our case, a council manager form of government. So as the city manager, I actually have 7 supervisors at once. So many people, if people have worked or they work currently, most of the time you really just have, you are the direct report of maybe one person. That person may report to someone, that person may report to someone. But as a city manager, you equally report to all of your elected body members. So in the case of me as a city manager, the mayor and the 6 council members, I am accountable to all of them all at once. So it is a challenge to keep communication to all of them at the same time or in a timely manner. I'm involved in a lot of meetings, communication type meetings. And while it's a challenge, it is only a challenge just because of juggling the balls and making sure that everybody has what they need to make good decisions. But I don't consider it a bad challenge. It is just an opportunity to be able to both manage the day-to-day operations of a large organization as well as be accountable to 7 bosses basically at the same time. So that would be that's, I can't think of another one that's close.
Beautifully stated. I don't have much to add. I was interim for almost a year. That part about 5 bosses, I had 5. It is a delicate balancing act, making sure that you are effective, equitable, and are navigating those relationships. And it's wonderful. Wanda does a phenomenal job. Our manager does a wonderful job. And then you have the departments, and on the county side, as I said, we have a lot of boards that are also there that the manager has to relate to as well. So they're master facilitators. So whenever you see them on TV or someplace else, think of them and send positive vibes, because there are no boring moments.
Well, I want to thank these outstanding public servants. I have both had the opportunity of knowing them for a few years.
Many years.
And so you have some of the best and brightest right in front of you. So take advantage of everything they know. They are always willing to help and to share, and you see why our community is so outstanding. Thank you so much.